Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hello and welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center right here in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. And we had the pleasure of connecting with these right people back in, I want to say, was it December, the Governor's Innovation celebration?
Yeah.
Yeah, you might not even remember.
I don't. Yeah.
I would expect you to. Kate, who I'd had the pleasure of having on with us a couple of times, you're Chief of People, I think, right? Chief Officer of People.
Yep.
Yeah. She was the one who said, hey, come over. Hey, it's great to reconnect. And then told us about the great company. You briefly got to say hello. And Annie, I think you're out of town. You do not live here in Arizona.
That's right.
Yeah. So we were excited. We were there because Steve Zalster and I do the Arizona Tech Council show together. Have been doing that for 3 years. And we wanted to go see, who was creating some great waves in the area of technology. And you guys specifically around motor vehicles and battery power and all that great stuff. So let me formally introduce our guest today, because we are getting ready for a rich conversation. We have the Atlas Motor Vehicles team, founder and CEO, Mark Hanchett. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Happy to have you. And Annie Pratt, president. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So tell us a little bit about Atlas Motors, just maybe the flyover, the high profile, and then I want to hear about your backgrounds, how you two connected, and then we'll talk a little deeper about what the great things are that you're up to and who you're serving.
Do you want me to go
That's
first?
you.
All right. So at high level Atlas Motor Vehicles, we tag ourselves as a vertically integrated electric vehicle company, technology company. But what's very interesting is our mission statement is actually built around solving complex problems that have a lasting impact. So it's not just about vehicles. It's, can we use technology to make people's lives better? Can we use technology to make an impact in the world? Electric vehicles is a hot topic today. Batteries are a hot topic today. So we're very much so focused on the infrastructure, energy side of this particular segment or problem that's out there today. Tomorrow it'll be vehicles, but that's not necessarily what we'll do forever.
Right.
There's always opportunity to leverage that technology or find something new that maybe plugs into that sort of ecosystem that we're building that can make that lasting impact. So Atlas today, we're an energy company today. We're building battery cells. We're building packs. We're manufacturing it. We're technically the first U.S. born right here in Mesa, Arizona, U.S. owned, U.S. operated battery cell manufacturing and pack manufacturing company in the entire United States. There are a lot of manufacturers in the United States, but they're typically they source their battery cells outside, or maybe they're foreign owned, or they've sort of been imported due to demand. We are the first one that's actually born here, operating here, manufacturing here at a scale level, not necessarily just at an R&D level, and working towards delivering those packs and cell solutions very, very quickly.
How important was that for you to do that, and how difficult was it?
Well, so to solve this problem that we talk about, if you're talking about like how difficult are batteries and why do that first? Or
well, US, right? So if you're the first, was that important to you? Did you set off saying, we're going to do this?
Yes. And
then the other half of that is, how difficult was it to land on the map and say, we're the first in the US to do this?
So it's incredibly challenging because the talent isn't necessarily originating here. There's a lot of talent overseas in Korea, in China, and Japan. There's talent in Europe. There isn't, or wasn't at the time, a tremendous amount of talent in the United States. That's changing very, very rapidly. Right now, you're seeing it a focus in schools and colleges, universities. Arizona State has a battery innovation lab that they're operating today. So you've got a relative large number of students, right, that are coming up through those different programs. So, but to start it here in the United States, it's very important because we started with this idea of electrifying pickup trucks. And as we know, that is inherently a U.S. like staple in the sort of vehicle industry. We are known for our pickup trucks. It's like one of the most important, if not the most important vehicle in the entire United States. It's Detroit, right? It's Michigan, it's American made. There's a brand and a emotion that comes with that, and being able to do the rest of this here in the US creates opportunity and reduces complexity. And you want to add to this?
I would add that, where we come from before this, we have experience with manufacturing overseas. And what we learned is it is so much faster and easier and more financially efficient if you can do it in-house. Because when something's going wrong, we walk over and say, this isn't working, let's solve this problem, right? And so when you're talking about battery technology, it would have cost us a ton more money to get to initial proof of concept if we weren't doing it under our own roof, and it would have taken us a lot longer. And so while it seems like maybe the untraditional path, for us it was just the fastest, easiest, most efficient way to do it at first. Then we realized, wait, no one else is doing this. That's cool. We're the first American company building batteries in America.
That's huge.
That's awesome. But the intention wasn't for us to be the only, right? I would assume that other companies would want to do this. It's just kind of untraditional.
Great.
Yeah, we took this different path, I guess. Most start in the end and then work their way sort of to the beginning. We started at the beginning and we'll work our way towards the end.
I know Kate shared a little bit about your background, which I was fascinated by, and I want to hear. You alluded to the two of you who came from manufacturing. Had you worked together previously, and how did this come about that you both are landed here at Atlas?
Yeah, I can take
go
this
ahead.
one.
Yeah.
So we both worked at Axon previously, which is a well-known company here in the Valley. I was in a product management role at the time, and Mark was running the engineering org. And so we were working together on a program. This was years ago. After that project sort of finished, I went on to run a different part of the business, the consumer products group there at Axon. Mark started Atlas, and it was years later where I basically hit him up and was like, what are you doing? And we got lunch. He told me about it. And it was the type of opportunity that could change the world. And so I was like, I have to be part of this, however I could. And so then we're working together again.
Yeah, she abbreviated a bunch of that, but
fill in the holes. Are there parts that she left out?
No, I mean, she's the thing that we did before. I mean, I spent 10 years there. You spent 5 years there. I mean, we worked on programs that has shaped an entire space and conversation in the world today. And to be able to do that again is a very, very powerful thing. When Annie hit me up and we went to lunch, we had lunch, and I'm going to tell this story, I guess, a little bit. Is afterwards, because it was like me and a few people at my house working out of the garage, and we're sort of getting started. And she actually defined how she wanted to help and how she wanted to do this. And when she did that, I was like, okay, like this makes absolute sense. And it's been fantastic working together because we've sort of like co-opted this thing to build this thing from where we were to where we are today. And it's been this incredible journey, but it's exciting because we get to kind of do this again, where we get to make a big impact in the world. We get to make a big change in the world, and we get to apply that philosophy that we had before to a market that is very traditional, and it's the way it does things.
Maybe even archaic.
Yes.
Sure,
Yeah.
Right. And so to have that vision, and already the great success that you've already had has been phenomenal. So talk a little bit about all that's transpired. What have you been up to, even just the last couple of years? And because you've been around, I mean, from garage.
2016 is when I incorporated. 2018 is when I started raising my first dollar.
I want to talk about that too.
Yeah. So in between there, I did a lot of research and trying to understand the market and what are the right choices and where do we go. It's one person sort of on their couch and traveling and trying to understand what is the right decision. I have not changed, and we haven't changed the business model since that date. So since 2018, when we launched the first crowdfunding round, our business model has not changed, and that's rare in this industry. There's a lot of sort of pivots, or maybe we'll do something else or abandon different programs and things like that. We haven't changed at all since then. We're pretty confident in the direction we're going and what we're doing. And and how we're doing this.
What do you attribute that to, if I can ask, that it stayed this? I'm going to take a stab at thinking it's because you just went so broad with where your focus was and then went down this lane. Is that part of why you feel like the business plan is the way it has been since 2018?
I think that it comes down to knowing, okay, we wanted to solve for electric pickups in the beginning, but really diving into what is the core problem and like taking the time to understand why those don't exist yet. That core problem is very specific and hasn't changed. And we built our entire business around solving that problem. So like you can't compromise on the problem you're solving. And you knew it very well in the beginning. This is exactly the problem we have to solve. And so that hasn't changed.
Okay. So 2018, 2019, keep going.
Okay. Well, all right. So, 2018, I don't come from a background where I had a lot of connections and a lot of sort of, I come from a humble background, personally, but I didn't have all of the connections to maybe different venture capitalists or private equity and funding steps. I did a lot of pitches, fell flat because it always came down to who are you? Where do you come from? What have you done so far? And I was like, well, I, put my personal money into this, but I don't, I come from Axon, not automotive.
And you're like some guy with this vision of a monstrous like plan, right? Like it wasn't like, oh, I'm here and I need a couple grand to get this off the ground. This was a big, huge thing.
Very capital heavy.
No one does this for a little bit of money. Yeah.
Right.
So, at the time there was like Kickstarters and like all this stuff going on. And for a long time, I was like, well, if I'm going to build a product and I have to build a market, otherwise I'm just out there sort of like, if I could raise a bunch of money and then put a product out and I'm wrong, I fail, but I fail harder than everybody else. I might have figured out how to do something, but it doesn't really matter. And this vision was big and it was broad but I sort of centered on if I can find a way to build a market, but have that market potentially help fund us. If we're doing the right things, then people would put money behind it if they were interested in what we're doing. And that's actually really hard to do. It's hard enough to convince one person to give you $1 million, but now convince 2,500 people to give you a few hundred to tens of thousands of dollars and have them trust you with that and be visible and transparent with it and, have to reach out to all of them. It sounded like fun, I guess. So I took the last little bit of money I had, created some graphics with like a bare minimum PowerPoint level graphics. A gentleman named Raul did the first truck design for us out of Brazil. Did a fantastic job with the first truck. I had another friend do some advertisements for us, and I launched a equity crowdfunding campaign. So what that means is I'm publicly raising funds for a business. They're buying stock in the business like you would in an IPO, but you're doing it at a private level and you're doing it from retail investors and accredited investors. And I launched with 4 followers, one of which was me. The other 3 were friends. One thought I was full of crap. I do swear, and I'm going to try not to do it.
It's internet radio.
It's internet radio. Okay, cool. Great.
Although we are on LinkedIn, so we'll see how that goes.
LinkedIn, they've heard me do it.
Right.
So I started from that point, and I hired 5 people with no money. I had no idea how I was going to pay their first paychecks. I had like the last 10 grand in my pocket, and that was going towards ads, which I had never done before. So it was like this sort of hadn't done this, like this 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 things that I've never done before, and had to learn very, very quickly. Because if you look at it, it's like your bank account's going like this. You've got people now, and you're trying to build a team, and you're trying to build a vision. You're trying to convince people to give you money while you're doing this. And I have no idea how to do all of it. So the first $1 million took me 12 months to do. And we got a big splash towards the end of that. And we actually overraised. We were oversubscribed by almost another $1 million. But our limit per the SEC was $1 million. So we raised $1 million, made some progress. We built a battery demo, charged a battery at an EVgo station outside of a PetSmart in 12 minutes, 47 seconds on like a table with like these canopies, and it was hot. And there was a BMW like i3 parked next to us waiting to use the charging station while we're doing
Like,
this.
just a minute.
Yeah, just one.
Less
Give
than
us
15.
less
Right.
15 minutes, promise.
Yeah.
So we accomplished a lot though with $1 million. We did more design work, more technology work. We built a concept of the platform. We built this prototype battery pack, and that lasted to about the first half of 2019. And then I'm just going to put it out there like we ran out of money.
Yep.
I had no idea. I had to do financial audits to do the next crowdfunding round. Had no idea how to do that. Had to find an auditor. Prices were high. Had to find a lawyer to do some stuff. We found our current general counsel, Jordan, who's amazing. He's been with us since around 2019. Found an auditor to do the financials. I had to find someone to do financials. I am not the person that should be doing financials. And then Annie, of course, met with her that fall of 2019, and she joined the company. And then I'm going to let her
take it
tell
from there.
Okay.
the rest of the
Before
story.
she does, though, and I am very interested in hearing the rest of the story, I'm curious about what's going on in you when you run out of money. You still believe in this dream. You've got a longer runway. What's happening for you, personal development wise? Because there's that piece that we don't often talk about. Part of us is freaking out.
Yeah. Don't do this when you have a girlfriend and 2 kids, I think might be, and I still have them. So that's
Hooray.
a positive. But how do I put this? I like to say that I run towards a cliff always. I believe in what we're doing. That is one piece of it. Number 2 is regardless of how big the challenge is in front of you, or no matter how many people tell you no, and no matter how many like reasons why you probably will never succeed there are that exist out there, just keep going. It is not going, like, it was not the first time necessarily, right, that I had failed at something and trying to start this thing. And I wouldn't say I failed. What I would say is, and this is the craziest thing, is that it wasn't just me. I had employees and team members. None of them left. We all figured out a way to keep moving forward regardless of the situation. And there was always here's a plan, here's what we're doing, here's the obstacles that are there. But personally, I don't think there was ever a moment during that time where I was like, I'm done. Okay. Every single day was, well, what can I do today? Right? Let's keep doing something. Let's keep moving. Let's keep going out there and pitching. Let's keep talking about what we're doing. Let's try to find a way to build the next thing. I burned a battery pack down in my garage in my home, and that's the fire department, and there's holes there, and my family was there. And those are those moments when most people will say, I can't, right? Because that's scary. That's that moment. I mean, there's a brand new house too that I was in, but those are the moments where most people would say, man, I'm like running out of money, or this is scary. Like this could have ended really badly. And that's also the moment where we sat down and we're like, all right, well, let's build another one. Let's do it again. And that's all. I can keep going on with this, but it's just, you have to keep going.
Yeah.
And having fantastic partners and team members and stuff that are working through this. My family, my girlfriend's been amazing through this, because brand new house, lit it on fire. And her response was, okay.
That's big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we overlook some of the backstory that really is the catalyst for success, the way in which we think and the way we interact and the right people on our team, and that grit and the tenacity. So I appreciate you sharing that. And then enters Annie.
Well,
take it from there.
I think what's really cool about that first couple years too is, okay, yes, you ran out of money, but you also oversubscribed a crowdfunding campaign.
Yep.
So there was clear demand that people wanted to fund this thing. There were just some regulatory hurdles to get there. And really, when I joined, it was at this really awesome time. I mean, we had no money, but we had thousands of people lined up being like, I want to put $100 into this, or I want to put $200 into this. You guys just need to get your stuff together so that I can do it. So we did that. The next regulation crowdfunding campaign, we raised $1 million in like a day.
Wow.
And it was wild.
That had to have been incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it didn't feel real. But it was because there were these people that believed in the vision, and they'd seen, okay, last time they raised $1 million on a PowerPoint deck, right? Since then, they built a battery pack and charged it in 12 minutes and something seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is real.
Mm-hmm.
And people will support a really good idea. I think you had that insight originally, and that insight has been what's carried us through really until late last year when we closed our last round of crowdfunding. So we raised the next $1 million in like 8 hours. We went to Backyard Taco for lunch. It was very exciting with like the 3 other team members. And we decided we've got to get out of the garage.
You're not even out of the garage at this
No.
point. That makes sense. But
No.
Thank you for the visual.
Yeah. So we got up to, I think, 15 team members at your house.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
His poor family.
What is your girlfriend's name?
Zenda.
Zenda. Thank you, Zenda.
Yeah, she's
thank
an
you.
angel.
Thank you. Sounds like it.
Yeah. So we got 15 people hired because we knew, okay, the next step is we need to start working toward production intent product design.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the prototype, next part's production. We can't produce production level anything in your home.
Yeah.
And so we found a facility. We sold them on the vision. The landlord was like, okay, we believe in it. Because you look at our financials and it's, oh, this company is just red, you know? But we got 15 people into the building. We were getting power brought into the building. At first, we were just on one really, really long extension cord.
Yes.
Love it.
And we decided we were going to open the building with our first battery demo publicly. So we hosted, it was an invitation to all crowdfunding shareholders and local sort of media, come watch us charge a battery live. And we worked overnight to get it all ready. We were building IKEA desks and the whole shebang. We did the battery day. It was awesome. And like 3 days later, COVID hit and everybody went home.
Right.
And so that summer of 2020 was us figuring out, okay, how do you survive in a scenario where a company like us that's super hardware dependent shouldn't?
How do you grow?
Grow
too,
is the right word. You're
right?
right. It's
Yeah.
not survive.
I mean, it was like, okay, let's build another battery pack.
Yep.
How do we do that when everyone's scared to get near each other?
Right.
Yeah. So we were driving a battery pack from the charging station. We'd throw it in the back of someone's truck, take it to their driveway. They'd work on it overnight. We take it to someone else's driveway. They do whatever they needed to do.
One guy's apartment, I think.
We had it in apartments. We had it back at the facility, and we would just sort of sanitize, and you just do whatever you have to do to make it work. Because the other option was everyone stays at home, nothing happens, and we just run out of money again. But we knew that progress for us was a path to more capital. And that's like a cycle that would continue as Atlas executed. And so the more we execute, the more money we'll raise and we'll get to keep going. And that took us through really 2020, 2021. We got up to, actually, I think we hired like 20 interns summer of 2020.
We were, Drew, who's here with us.
We
is
You were
one of
2020?
them.
Yeah. Yeah, so Drew was one of our interns. So a bunch of companies that had internship programs in 2020 said, no, we're actually not going to hire you guys because everything's uncertain right now. And so there are all these kids that had opportunities lined up that then got bailed on. We saw it as an opportunity. We could use all the help we can get. And so Drew's one of the many. We actually have quite a few that are still with us. Drew built our entire social media presence, which ultimately ended up fueling the future crowdfunding campaigns. So that was very, very cool.
It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should get Drew in here someday, and
I know.
he won't be
yeah.
behind the camera anymore.
I think he's pretty content behind the camera right now, but next time.
He's been in front of it like 2 times.
Yeah. Okay. Well, next time then
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. Good. Okay. So that takes us up to 2021.
So through 2021, I mean, we built the real effort was going from that prototype level to production level on the battery side.
Yeah.
And with that came all kinds of
Yeah, I mean,
chaos.
2021 was there is no point in history where it wasn't like, hey, let's make a decision, and this is going to be challenging, and we're going to work through this. In 2021, we built our first battery cell in-house, and we've got all these, like, we needed a dry room, so in January we couldn't afford a dry room.
So a dry room, for people who
Yeah.
don't know, it's a room that has very specifically controlled temperature and humidity, and you have to build batteries in that environment so that they essentially work the way they're supposed to.
Yeah. So we couldn't afford one. So in January of 2021, we literally said, well, what's a dry room? And everything we do is about fundamental problems. So if it's raising capital, it's fundamentally, how does that happen? If it's developing a product, fundamentally, what is the challenge that we have there? If we're going to build a battery cell, fundamentally, what do we need? A dry room was no different. We talk about this one a lot because this is one of our core values is make it happen. And this is a great example of that. We had to build one. They were about $500,000. We had nowhere near that amount of capital available to us. So we built one out of Home Depot parts and some plastic wrap and insulation. And this guy, Vincent, Zilka, myself, some of the other people. Justin, who's another intern who's with us now as an engineer. I basically got in my truck, grabbed the trailer, went to Home Depot, bought a bunch of stuff, came back, and we started building that night at like 8:00 that night. We built a dry room. And then that summer, we finally completed the first version of the AMV, what we call a cube cell or AMV cell V1. And the most amazing thing about that, it was a 24-hour day when we were building the first one.
We didn't think when we built the dry room to build windows.
Yeah.
Because we're just focused on walls, temperature control, humidity control.
Right.
And so then we built this thing and it worked. But from the outside, you had no idea what was going on the inside.
Yeah.
So anyway, you can keep going your
No,
story.
keep going. Yeah.
But we're sitting... Those of us that aren't involved in actually building it are just sitting outside the dry room. What's happening in there? We're like yelling through. And then finally we set up a video feed. And so we're all huddled around the laptop watching as these guys build the very first one.
Yeah. And the first one worked. That was the most amazing thing is no one builds like their first cell and then it just miraculously like charges.
It shouldn't have worked.
It should not have worked.
But
There's no reason why. I mean, there are reasons why it should have worked, but given the process and like these guys, the engineers at the time, they'd been up for 24 hours as it was. We were pushing through this
Wayne's
thing.
eyes were just so red because it's so dry in there and he'd been in there for hours. And so his eyes are just so dry.
Archit was like, he's like, the sun is coming up. I've never seen a sunset before in my life. And you're seeing it through the dry room. That's the funny thing is he's not like even outside. He's in the dry room and he's seeing it through the wall that's in there. So we built our first cell June 2021. And that was a huge milestone. We built about 6 or so after that. But that first one worked. And that was just like this moment of like, okay, we're doing this thing, right? Like it's happening. We also built the prototype truck that same month, which in May of that year, we did like not quite pretty much a sort of, hey, we've got 2 months to build this truck. What we've been doing wasn't working out very well. So I know the date, May 15th. May 15th, sat down with Derek, who's the longest running Atlas employee. He's been with me since pretty much day one.
He started in 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
And Derek and I sat down and we're like, this is how we're going to do it. We put a plan together. These guys and gals, they built a truck, our prototype truck, in 60 days.
Yeah, it was wild.
And it was wild. But that battery cell moment, though, that happened in between there was like this huge, like we've been talking about it. We did demos, we did prototypes, we built this thing. And then from there, it's been scaling it, trying to figure out how we build more of them, like trying to solve all of those challenges. This is not an easy industry to do. Or to do this in. Its average is over $1 billion if you're building something from zero to your first dollar of revenue.
Yeah, so when we talk about raising $1 million, like to the audience, that might sound like a lot of money, but for an electric vehicle company, average $2 billion to get a product to market. For a battery company, it's even more, and we're doing both.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and we're doing both, like,
Simultaneous.
simultaneously, same time. So, and then the story from there is, I mean, we built the first ones and the second ones and the third ones, and you're dealing with, there's coatings and all these pieces and stuff that are really challenging. Timing's challenging. COVID issues
I
are
was
still
just
happening.
thinking that, right? It's not only the people issue with COVID, but also supply and demand and the chain and all those challenges.
Everything
availability.
everything. But, we've managed to like overcome almost every challenge related to like either supply chain, COVID, or whatever it is.
I think it comes down to like culturally, Mark mentioned make it happen. That's been a big part of how we do things where, it's never going to go according to plan. So we adjust, we figure it out. What's plan B? What's plan C? And, COVID, there's nothing you can do to control for that. So find another supplier. Okay. This one might work. Okay. Let's, go out to New York, check it out, whatever it is. And you just find a way.
Okay.
Yeah. There's so much of that, I think, ingrained in even today. It's very much so that way.
What is happening today? Get us what's next for you guys?
Oh,
and
boy.
Well, we recently, earlier this month, we crossed 100 employees. So that's a big number for us. Especially
all here in Arizona?
90% here in Arizona. Yeah. We got a handful of remote people, but what we learned during COVID is, especially on the engineering side, it's so efficient to be working side by side with people. And so a lot of our roles can't be remote. Some can, but some can't. And so 100 people is a big one, though. I feel like with that, we're feeling a lot of change. Process is like a word that is exciting, but also doesn't feel good sometimes. And we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we go from low volume production to high volume production? And that's a big leap that we have to make this year.
Yeah. This year, the focus is on scale. So we're manufacturing cells, we're manufacturing and developing packs for external customers. We've got internal customers as well for those particular products. So right now, what is going on is it's those growing pains. It's sort of, we're going from, I think David Apps puts it best, is like we're getting out of the garage. We are trying to move from this company that is very much so like fast moving. We pivot on a technology or solution when we need to more operationally focused in some aspects of the business. I don't want to kill that. Like
we have to do both.
Yeah, we have to do that, but we have to have that startup mentality always. But now we have to grow right into this sort of process oriented.
Yeah, we're talking about like day shifts and night shifts and weekend shifts and all these things that are new.
Yeah, we have 2 shifts today. We're moving to 3 shifts on production coming up. We've got all these like control. It's so interesting because I mean, we don't not come from a background where we do manufacturing. We've done this before. I've done this on 50 something products before. But it's always interesting to go from that transition of like idea to concept to product to manufacturing and then scaling manufacturing. It is hard. But it's another one of those make it happen moments.
Yeah, it's part of doing this thing, right?
Right. So we're public now though too. I mean, that's a huge.
Speak to that.
You want to go for that.
So throughout from 2018 when you launched the first campaign to last fall, we raised about $36 million through equity crowdfunding, which was very cool. We became very good at it. And what we realized, though, was okay, to make this next leap, to go from where we are today to where we want to be at the end of this year, we're going to need to raise a lot more money. And equity crowdfunding is awesome in that you're raising money every day. And so that's great because every day, you know, dollars come in and we can decide what are we doing with them today. But to scale and plan for the year, we're looking at massive capital equipment expenses, manufacturing equipment, and we knew we needed to raise money in a round like other companies do it, right? And so in talking to investors and all the different ways that we might do that, we realized becoming a public company allows us to have a lot more options in terms of the types of capital we could raise.
What are some of the fears that show up when you are teetering on that decision?
I don't think we had many. What's interesting about equity crowdfunding is once you've done more than one round, you're required to do things like audits, and you file annual reports with the SEC. And so you kind of are like a public company with training wheels on. And so with that, it actually makes the idea of going public less daunting, I think, because we're like, okay, we kind of know how to do this. It'll be different.
We're all already kind of doing it.
But we're already kind of doing it. So for us, that part wasn't scary. It was more figuring out, okay, what's the right path to actually go through that process? So like a normal company would do either an IPO or a direct listing.
SPACs.
Or a
was a big
SPAC
thing,
deal,
yeah.
you're right. And a lot of what people would consider our competitors did SPAC deals to go public.
Yep.
What we saw last year was the reality was if you did a SPAC deal, you didn't actually get any cash from the transaction. The redemption rates with SPACs, which I think a lot of people who aren't like deep in it don't realize this. During a SPAC deal, the investors in the SPAC have an option to redeem, which is essentially to like take their money back. And so last year, what was happening with SPAC deals is redemption rates were like 97, 98, 99%. And so the actual cash coming to the company was zero.
Or negative.
Or negative
Yeah.
because you have costs associated with lawyers and stuff like that. And so for us, we were like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would we pay money to go public? So what we actually ended up doing was using one of our equity crowdfunding campaigns, working with NASDAQ and the SEC and saying, this is essentially a public offering. We want to register the shares associated with this offering on the public markets. And a couple companies have done stuff like this before. So we were lucky. I think we got great partners at NASDAQ and the SEC who worked with us. And ultimately, we flipped our Reg A Plus public. So it wasn't a direct listing. It was kind of an IPO, but it was a crowdfunded IPO. And that's what took us public in September.
Of last year.
Of last year.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was wild.
Yeah.
Well, and then the week of it was wild.
The week of it is wild, which we still can't talk about all of that yet.
Yeah. I guess what we can say is part of that process, you really want to be able to pick a date and then plan a whole campaign around that date. And because of the way we were doing it, there was so much up in the air that what ended up happening was we had like 24-hour notice that this is happening. And so then, you make it happen. And the team mobilized. And
I think we got notice Sunday morning at like 8 a.m. That Tuesday Tuesday we were ringing the bell. I think
no, Tuesday we went public.
Wednesday we went public. Wednesday we were ringing the bell. And we had marketing materials to take out there. We had to book flights for people, hotels. We had a vehicle that had to be there. So we had team members mobilize at like 2 p.m. on Sunday, got in a truck, grabbed the vehicle, the trailer, all the content, and started driving
to
New
York
yeah.
From Arizona.
And they didn't stop.
They didn't stop until Tuesday night at like midnight or something when they arrived, and then went all morning because they couldn't set up till like 5, 6 in the morning, something like that. which is another crazy story because they're trying to set up, and it's the one time that they wash the windows at
In Times
NASDAQ
Square.
of the whole, or Times Square the
Once
whole
a year,
year.
right? Yeah, once a
How
year.
funny.
Yeah. So, but it's just this nutty story of like, we had no sort of heads up or anything. I mean, we knew like something was coming, but to get it like Sunday morning, by Sunday afternoon, mobilize the entire team,
Wow.
figure out travel plans, get there, do everything on Tuesday. Mary, who's with us today, I mean, fantastic job. She's running everything from like the PR marketing side of this and like trying to catch up, so to speak,
Right.
with like the short-term window. But again, it's make it happen, right? There was no sort of like, oh, it can't be done. It was purely just, okay, this is what needs to get done. Can you guys do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And everyone just, it turned into this crazy, exciting moment for us. I mean, we had people on Teams calls. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
like
go.
on the planes. We had like 4 different teams on 4 different planes on Teams calls while they're traveling over here on video while
Yeah,
we're doing
Southwest
this.
doesn't like it when you're on a video
Yeah,
call.
yeah. So we're
Mm.
all doing this. We're all coordinating. There's some of us in New York. We're getting these like daily updates from the team driving, and it just turned into this like big, exciting, everybody had fun, like crazy event. But it was not easy to do that. But you're right. I mean, it's unconventional, but it's also very much so Atlas way of
Mhm.
like going public and sort of moving to the next steps and how do we grow from here?
Yeah. Have you seen the documentary Beyond Zero?
No.
No.
So, as part of the conscious capitalism movement, GCU showed the documentary. It was sometime last year, towards the end of the year, and it's about a carpet company who took 20 years to change the way the industry worked, so it was more sustainable, right? So the fabric that they use is zero. It's beyond zero, right? There's and the commitment. It's a documentary I hope you guys will watch, because I'm listening to what's happening right now since 2017, 2016, and what's happening right now in 2023 for you. And the foresight that you've had, the drive, this let's get it done, the passion, the team, and all that is so similar to how I felt watching this incredible documentary on the big screen at the arena. And you're changing an entire industry. You're solving a problem that needed to be solved. So anyway, just
We'll have
it
to
makes
check
me,
it
yeah,
out.
I think
Yeah,
I think you'd be fascinated with, and it's just an incredible story, and there's so many similarities, I think, about what we're talking about. From a consumer perspective, and maybe the naive consumer perspective, what do we need to be aware of? I mean, you have internal customers already. You've got some folks that you're working with outside of that. What does this mean for us in the area of EV?
Well, I think today, the way I look at it, or the way we look at it as an organization, is that today there is a very clear movement towards electrification, but there's a hesitation there, and there's a compromise required to make that transition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm a firm believer that if you want to change the world, it requires no compromise, which means if we build a product, it has to be so incredibly compelling that people want to make that transition. It cannot be forced. I'm not a big fan of government mandated change. It always comes, there's good reasons for it. Like catalytic converter was a fantastic reason for it. But I'm a big fan of changing the world through development of products, technology, solutions, business models that are so incredibly compelling that when someone moves or they transition, they will look back and they'll say, why the fuck was I doing that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, that makes no sense whatsoever. Mary just gave me a look.
First one.
And she's not
But-
even in the room.
Yeah.
But it has to be that level of sort of like change
Yeah.
that you're looking for. And for us and what we're doing, the reason why we started with batteries is because we want to create that moment.
Mm-hmm.
We want to create that product that is so compelling, that is so different, that literally draws you into it, versus I'm afraid of it, I don't want to be a part of that. I love my diesel, I love my gas.
And now that I know better, I need to do better, is what I'm hearing you say. Right?
It's not even that. They'll do it without even having that be the motivation.
Because it's going to be better. So what do you drive today? Do you drive an electric car?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. Probably education. And my first thought was cost, expense, and not longevity, but distance.
Yep. Yeah. Those are all the reasons, right? I don't drive an electric vehicle either because I have a car that's old but paid off, right? It gets pretty good gas mileage, and I don't have to worry if I'm driving from where I live to LA or whatever about charging infrastructure. And so I think those problems that are unanswered today by electric vehicles have to get answered, and then the vehicle has to be better than what we're used to for us to be like, I'm making the change.
The entire ownership experience has to be better. So the vehicle industry, including the number one player that's out there today, has not fundamentally changed this industry in terms of how it operates. It's very transactional. Now, from my perspective, and this is a little visionary, is I believe in the next 10 to 15 years, this concept or idea of consumption of energy is going to go away. I think it's going to transition to this concept of access. Today, you have your phone. You remember when you used to pay for data on your phone? Some people might still do it, but now, I mean, I pay a monthly fee and it's unlimited and also covers my phone and covers my kid's phone and everybody else. So this idea that in 10 to 15 years, you'll pay for access to energy. Well, if I'm paying for access to energy, what does that apply to? That's going to apply to not just your vehicle, but your home, the infrastructure, charging, and all of that stuff. So if we can apply this technology that we're developing today to that future, it's going to be so incredibly compelling to make the switch that you're not going to do it because you're trying to save the planet. You're not going to do it because you think global warming is real. You're not going to do it because it's better for us. You're going to do it because it's simply just better for you. And the byproduct of that is that we are doing all of those great things with it. And that's this idea that if you're going to change the world, you have to build something that is better, that is more compelling than what they do today. So therefore, you'll switch without even thinking about the impacts of what that switch is. But that impact is positive. So from our perspective, and that's where Annie and I come from too. I mean, that's what we did at Axon is we built products that were so compelling that you didn't add time, all these things. We didn't degrade the value of their daily lives. Well, if we're going to do that in this particular industry, whether it's right now it's energy, tomorrow it's automotive, the next day after that it could be it could be anything really. Let's do that in such a way that it just they naturally want to gravitate towards that solution, and the alternative, which is what you have today, just doesn't make sense.
The word stewardship keeps showing up for me. I mean, you're a steward of so many things as you set the pace for everybody else. It's phenomenal. We only have a few minutes left in our conversation, so I want to make sure that I had a chance to give you an opportunity to highlight the things that you wanted to highlight. Maybe we should lean in so that Mary could tell us what we missed. But what is there anything else about what's happening today? What's next? What we should be paying attention to that I hadn't thought to ask that we want to close out the show with?
I would plug quickly that I said we're at 100 people today, and that's awesome. We're looking at being several hundred very quickly. And so with that, we need a lot of really good people. And so we'll be hiring for all types of jobs. And I think for people who are passionate and like the culture that we are talking about, we need more of that. So check out our website, atlasmotorvehicles.com/careers, I think.
Okay.
Or go to the Atlas website and find the careers tab.
There you go.
Yeah. I couldn't have said that any better. I mean, we're looking to grow. We're looking for talented people that want to solve these sort of complex, interesting problems, that are looking for something that is challenging and exciting. I try to emphasize as much as I can that It's not a job. We have a purpose. We have a drive. We're trying to do something, and there's an impact that we're going to make with what we're doing. It's a lot of work and it's challenging, but it's also really fun and exciting at the same time. Very few companies have a blue sky sort of approach to how do you solve a problem, and we're one of those companies that are doing it. And it's not just engineering. I mean, we're doing it on the media side. We're doing it. Annie, Mary, Drew, Evan, and the rest of the team, I mean, they have built this media engine within this company that's going to be incredible as we continue to grow. And it's going to help us with that. But there's the technical side, there's the manufacturing side, tons of opportunities out there, and we need help to do that.
Wow. It's a fast and furious hour. Fascinating. You both are obviously on LinkedIn. You mentioned the website, atlasmotorvehicles.com.
Yep. ATLIS.
Okay.
Motor vehicles.
And where on social media? LinkedIn, obviously, but where else can people follow your story and your success?
It's actually probably most interesting to follow us on YouTube. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, they all point back to YouTube.
Okay,
but
good.
we share weekly updates every week and progress updates in between that. So there's a ton of content if you want to follow our story.
I feel like that's one of the things that Kate was telling me about when we first really got connected at the Governor's Innovation Celebration, because you have been doing that for quite some time. Like this is what we're faced with today. And I think I heard her say something along the lines like, we don't know how we're solving this yet, but we know we're going to. Is it that approach?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we talked about crowdfunding and how progress translated to us being able to raise money, social media was the medium through which we could deliver that story. So we built a huge following on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, to reach people so they could sort of join us and follow
it's
along.
working.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Anything else for the good of the order? We're good.
No, I can keep going.
I know we could for
you're
hours.
You're going to cut me off. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I really appreciate all the shout outs to your team, of course, because it really is what makes a difference when you have a founder who has this passion and purpose, and then you start to bring on the right people and you continue to look back and say, hey, I couldn't have done this without you. That speaks volumes about who you guys are leaders. So great conversation today. And we will invite you back and have a couple other people sit behind the mics as well next time, even though you have your own media mecca going, apparently. So I feel very blessed to have this opportunity to learn about you guys today. And I'm grateful that you guys are here in Arizona and you are members of the Arizona Technology Council.
We are, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll put a bug in Bianca's ear and Steve's ear to make sure we get you on one of our shows that we share time with them as well. You've been listening to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business. Until next time, I'm Karen Nowicki. Thanks for listening.